Peace, family. We are live on this special edition.
Yes,
I'm here with my brother Barry with Voice of the Youth, and we're talking about Trap That Vote. We're talking with some millennials up in here, some young folks. The last time we were on here about the voting, we was with the Sacramento Sister Circle and BWAPA, Black Women Organized for Political Action. Tonight we're with some of these young millennials. We want to know what they think.
Yes.
Barry, what's your thoughts?
Man, it's about to be crazy, but I want our guests to go ahead and introduce yourselves. Go ahead.
My name is Cole Ferguson. I'm a recent graduate from Tech State, getting my degree in economics and international relations.
Look at that. There you go.
Juanita Butler, an alum from Sac State, 2015.
Okay.
My degree is in sociology.
We got some black educated college students.
That part.
Okay.
That part.
I'm Kayla. I'm a graduate from UC Davis in
Whoa,
2013.
let's go.
I study psychology and African American Studies.
And you're a teacher too.
Oh yeah, I teach now, 2nd and 3rd grade.
And you're with Voice of the Youth. You know what
Oh
I'm
yeah.
saying?
Yeah, that's my main man Barry right here. I stay volunteering with him.
Yeah,
You feel me? Okay.
Well, I'm Taylor. I go to Sac City. I'm with the Black Student Union,
Exactly.
and I'm a communications major.
Right on, y'all. Right on.
And we talking about the black vote. This is going to be real deal. And we're going to talk about the black vote. What is in it for us? I think that's a question that so many people have that in their mind, but I don't think they really speculate on that, because I think that with black people, we just vote to sometimes vote. So we really want to know, like, especially when we hear so many people talk about voting, you know, trap the vote, woke vote, you know, all kind of different things, you know, rock the vote, vote or die, whatever it is. Everyone's talking about voting, especially black people. But for historically, as we know, we've been manipulated, I feel, with our voting, and we have been moved to the side after the voting process is done. And we know that just, if you look at statistics, 18 to 24, you know, the demographic, that they don't really vote, right? And you can imagine if it's overall how many of young black folks vote, what that looks like. So we want to talk about it, change it, and really look at this voting thing as a strategic kind of plan instead of an emotional grain that we usually do. So y'all with that?
Yeah.
Y'all ready?
I'm with all that.
Y'all, you all ready? Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. See, I'm on my pre-checking sound. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, y'all, voting's a lot of stuff this year on the voting. How do y'all feel? Do you feel like your vote is important, first of all, as young folks?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, just as Barry was touching on, kind of from the very beginning, as he said, the question is what does it do for us? What is voting for us? And to me, it's crazy that we're still even asking that question, because we are all aware of the systems within our country and how our country moves upon systems. So in order for us to be a change, make anything happen, we have to understand these systems, we have to impact these systems, we have to change these systems. So obviously voting is going to be important, because that's how our country is ran. And when we have people who are banking on black people not voting in general, and then banking on young black people not voting even more because they're oblivious, because they're uninterested, because they're discouraged, because they don't feel like it helps, it doesn't assist them, it's not improving their, again, as millennials, we are into instant gratification. Like, we want turnaround quick. If it takes 45 seconds to load, I'm already looking for another video. You know what I mean? So it's like, when we consider voting and we consider these systems and the process, I think that so many people are discouraged just because the process is long, and we're not used to patience. We're not used to demonstrating our resilience to make sure that things are, when we start them, make sure that we're ending them, seeing them from start to end is basically what I'm saying. So kind of how Barry was saying, not just kind of falling into the, oh, well, my great grandmama was riding such and such, and I gotta vote because my family harasses me about it. Like, no, you need to not just vote and cast a ballot, but be aware. Make sure that things are being followed through for the people that you took the time to research, to study, to give your vote to. And that's really how we honor our ancestors, in my opinion. It's not just about, as my coaches would say, like, oh, you just going through the motions. Like, it's not about going through the motions. If you're not here to make a difference, if you're not putting in your all, what are you doing?
I agree with you.
I want y'all to bring the mics up, because for some reason, that's okay. That's what I'm listening, like, when you talk, don't be scared of the mic. Act like you gonna hold, like, get up
What's
on the mic.
good?
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I definitely agree with what she was saying, because not only is it a tribute to the ancestors because they were fighting for their basic rights, we're still fighting for our rights. But Black people are the first people to always complain about something and don't make any moves or feel the need to educate themselves. So even though a lot of us may not know every single thing there is to know politically, we still have no excuse to not be out here voting. Last time we didn't vote, now we all getting taxed for bags at the grocery store. You know what I'm saying? And everybody complaining about that, but it's like, you could have voted, you could have stopped it. So
Yeah.
I definitely agree with what you were saying about that.
And with all due respect, the one thing that, I agree with everything said up until the accountability portion, that's kind of where we begin to gravitate, towards not voting. And you see a lot of, millennials say, okay, our vote's disenfranchised because after we vote, we don't get accounted for, whether that be Black folks or young folks in general. Because, in my opinion, my philosophy has always been that we can vote as much as we want and we can honor our ancestors, what they fought for, what they died for, and what they, wanted to help bring to fruition. We don't have any economic backing for that. So like, how can we hold, these politicians accountable and these, policies accountable? For example, we voted for, Democrats largely, and when Bill Clinton was elected president, with regards to the crime bill, which had good intentions initially when Joe Biden introduced it through amendments and everything. That policy ended up being detrimental to Black folks. So no matter what, we can vote. And they, they may seem to have our best interest. They can initially have our best interest in the beginning. However, those policies often throughout the process of a bill becoming a law, as well as the systematic bringing of a bill into law, it becomes detrimental to Black folks. So how do we hold not only the policymakers accountable, but our politicians that we elect accountable? And we don't really have that power to do so without any economic backing, because look who donates to their campaigns. We don't. They only come to our hood. They only come to the hood. They only come to our neighborhoods to give votes and to campaign. But look who's making the donations to their campaigns. That's not us, because we don't have the money. 1971, when they passed the Corporate PAC Act that allowed the campaign donations by corporate companies and by others, individuals, that allowed for it to basically be money to run politics. So now that we don't have any money, we're all disenfranchised economically. They're relying on votes when it comes to, when it comes to election time to win us over. But to keep them in office, they're not really relying on us unless it comes to a controversial kind of policy, such as Measure U or Prop 10, where they need either Black folks to be on one side of that, and that's what the Democrats have largely done. And they can do that because they keep us in poverty, they keep us in, on welfare, they don't let us gain any economic ground. So it's like,
Talk that, boy.
I agree.
Baby.
I agree. We need to vote, and we need to know what we're voting for. But then at the same time, we don't really have the power economically to hold these politicians and these policymakers accountable for what they're doing in our communities in retrospect after we vote for them.
And my rebuttal to that.
Dun, 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 dun. It's gonna get very serious in here. Let's go.
Like,
Let's rock it out.
Well, I mean,
Let's
I
get it.
hear what you're saying, and I definitely understand that, because obviously that is important, that we make sure that they are being accountable, that they are following through, and like I was saying, seeing it from start to end. But again, like you said, how do we make them accountable? In my opinion, if we are knowledgeable about the people who are running, if we're supporting the people who are coming from our own communities, who are coming from
Yeah.
sorry.
Just bring your mic up.
Okay. If we are knowledgeable about the candidates, if we are aware of their background, their mentality, because as Barry liked to say, well, I think we done all heard this. You feel me? Everybody who brown ain't down,
Skin folk.
All skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Yeah, like that's
my
just the
favorite
reality.
line.
And so, like when we look at like certain people that we would consider, Jim Cooper, for example, has been like a topic of discussion. Right? So he is a Black man. He is from Sacramento. There's all this assumption, and again, when we are unaware and we're just trying to base it on the surface level, that seems like someone who would have my same mentality, who shares my same interests, who would be making decisions on behalf of my people, because that's where he came from. But then you look at his background, like, oh, he got a long history with law enforcement, and and then so then it's like, oh, okay, so then when we're looking for reform in regards to law enforcement, but if they're paying him, of course we're not getting no we're not getting no turnaround, like how you're saying. We're not going to be the ones to be able to force the issue. But my rebuttal to that would be, that's why we have to be knowledgeable of the candidates. That's why we have to put people in that we don't have to worry about being coerced by some endorsement or being coerced by some big promotion or money or something like that. Simply, they are involved because they have good intentions. They want the real outcomes. Like they're, you know what I mean? So I think that that's what's important, is that if we consider those people, and then it's like we don't have to worry about them being so easily distracted by, okay, well, here's a paycheck if you go this way. It's like, bro, I didn't come here for all that. Like, I came here because this is what I see in my neighborhoods. This is what I want to see in my neighborhoods. And the amount of money that you're offering me is not going to deter me from making the change that I really want to see, and for the people who are supporting that change.
Right. So I'll say this, you're both right. I think that's the one thing when you're inside of a black nation, if you will, or even in a country, there's many tribes, there's many nations, there is no one way of being black anything. There are some people who, I didn't vote for nuclear, I don't know like that. However, there are some people who believe in what he stands for. Some people are trying to get to that middle class. Some of us are trying to get to, I want to live like my masters. And I think when you identify people like that, then you vote accordingly. If you believe in that lifestyle, you support that lifestyle. If you don't, then you put somebody up against them who's for your lifestyle. I think that both of you all are right. I think that's the beautiful thing that I love to see when we can have these conversations. How do we have more money? Like the one guy that's running for the superintendent of instruction, some women didn't want to back him because he took money from the prison industry. Who else is going to finance his campaign? His opponent got plenty of money. So what's his track record, man? Like we did, I know he did Freedom School in Southern Cal and some other stuff. I went to their conversation they had. He was actually pretty good. So I'm just saying, when you look at stuff like that, when are we going to start seeing some millennials, on some of these tickets? Because I think the answer is, you got a dirty glass, you put a clean glass next to it. When we going to see some of y'all up there running for city council and school districts? Huh? What?
I said after law school.
After law school? Hey, I'm just saying, we need y'all right now.
You might get
We
corrupted by that.
cannot be waiting.
That part.
Never that.
That part.
Never that.
You said that part.
No, I mean, because that is the fear. Like,
We
just
need
like I
y'all
said,
now.
with the goal being, if we elect people who we believe have the purest intentions, at some point, just like like I was using Jim Cooper, but the person who was going to get something like that. Yeah, from Elk Grove. He was talking about how, we need to remove all of this money endorsement from politics. Because again, that's not the purpose of politics, but then that's how people are being persuaded to change their argument to better suit other people who they initially weren't, that's not why they was in that race. Like, you know what I mean? So I think that there is some truth to what Barry is saying in terms of people are gonna have temptations, and how big do you want to go? Just like you said, I mean, if I'm in it for grassrooted causes,
Right on.
but then I start being liked, and then people start reaching out to me, and then I see that this is growing, and I can actually do more than I ever imagined, but I can't do that on no bigger budget. I can't do, you know what I mean? And then that's where all the influence comes in, unfortunately.
Well, in my opinion here, it comes from, I'm economics influence politics. That's actually a theory in international political economy. As I consider myself a Garveyist and a Pan-Africanist. How that starts?
Speak that, brother.
How that starts is, we have that economic base, we have that foundation of a black society. Let's say, use for example, Black Wall Street was the epitome of a socialist kind of capitalist society where businesses complemented each other. If that in some way that was replicated within, these largely black areas, we wouldn't need to rely on, either campaign donations from anyone else, because look, we're gonna have this campaign donation from the community that we're representing to have that representation, whether that be, let's say we have 2 seats that can't be corrupted and can't co-opt from, donations from other communities. Let's say Del Paso Heights and Oak Park. You have those 2 large economic basis cities where you have 2 black representatives who won't change and they won't defect their mindset out, because you can hold them accountable, because look, you don't represent your constituents. We can pull that endorsement back and put somebody up there who we want. And that's essentially, how that would work. If we did have that, let's say in specifically Sacramento, that's 2 black areas right there that we could have on city council right there that wouldn't need to defect out and represent that we would know we can count on to represent us and not defect out of their mindset, not become corrupt, because we have that economic background to support them. And they can go on with their campaign they don't have to go and censor themselves, whether that be at city council meetings or whether that be in the streets, and who they need to appeal to, because they don't care, because they have us, we have their support because they're representing us when it comes to that political mindset.
I think that you're spot on. And I feel like the problem that we have, black people, we treat politics with that idea of grassroots, that idea of being politically correct, that idea that you're supposed to be doing the right thing as a public official instead of looking at it as a business.
Community based.
This is community based. That's a wrap. That's over with. That's been done. I don't know how long ago. And we continue to go in there with that mindset, not of the hunters, but the prey. Right? We continue to go into these voting ballots, and we look at ourselves as people on the menu, not the ones serving the menu. So when you have that mentality and you constantly are looking at our vote as we struggle to be people to vote, then we decided to not get involved in the vote, and then we just kind of just vote because we don't want someone to tell us anything crazy, or we just don't vote because we don't believe in it. We don't look at it on a business standpoint. And this is the reason why, like, whether you're black, you're white, you don't have to appease to any black people for real, because what consequence are you going to take? What consequence are you going to get? If I don't do something for you three in your community, who's going to stop me?
That's true.
Like, who's going to vote me out? Because what's going to end up happening is I'm going to go give somebody $50,000 that can work in the community, and when it's time for me to come out and show and say, hey guys, I helped with this little park, yay, yay, and you forgot about the 3 times 2 other people came into my office and I said no with great ideas, because you're not in the loop. So if we go into this as business, I'm going into this whole voting process this year strictly about my business. I don't trust the people about Measure U, but then turn around, I sure don't trust the people that say no on Measure U. I'm at the table with a bunch of folks that can put something real. I know myself. If it doesn't go the way that I've heard, I know what I'm going to do. And every Negro that's at the table that tries to pretend, they're going to get outed out. That's what I know. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to be playing this, well, let's give them another try. I'm like, I need direct impact right now.
Let's look at that Measure U. What is Measure U? Since you brought that up, what is Measure U?
Measure U is confusion. It's confusion. I'm gonna let you know right now. Real talk. It's a good and it's a bad. Go ahead, King. Break it down.
For the election on Tuesday, it's a repeal, adding a half a cent tax to Sacramento sales tax. So it'll go away from 8.75 to 9.25. It's the revenue generated from Measure U is supposed to go to the general fund. At least the numbers that have been crunched is supposed to double the revenue coming in Sacramento from 50 million to 100 million. Last year, the city council invested 0.3 of that into the community. However, there have
0.3?
0.3.
Okay. What is that?
I don't know. Now, did you
Okay, I'm
get?
sorry.
Because I'm like,
0.3,
because I'm looking at you and then you looking at me because I didn't get point. We'll keep going.
Zero.
I mean, I'm not sure what the numbers are of how much they have received, and how much they did get. But there are some black businesses that have some black nonprofits that have gotten some money from that.
What is a black nonprofit?
Black broke people.
No, really, what is a black nonprofit?
You would be surprised.
Because Asian Resources is an Asian nonprofit, and they're proud to be Asian, even though they make their money off of the backs of black kids. They're Asian, and yes, they make their money off of that. So Asians don't rely on any of this stuff. None of them do.
Our nonprofits just means that the business can't make money, the entity can't make money. So you'd be surprised the number of nonprofits that actually disperse the money to the executive officers and the CEOs who are on the board. So they're making money. But when taxes come about, the business can't make any profit. So that's what a nonprofit is. So people be surprised if they nonprofit doesn't generate money. Nonprofits do generate money. They just have to disperse it before the fiscal year ends. That's really what that means.
Or roll it over.
Something like that. And that's what kind of distract people from saying, thinking nonprofits are broke and don't make any money. They're nonprofits that generate a lot of money.
So with this money from Measure U, why are some people pushing yes and some people pushing no?
So I'll answer that personally. We started the campaign for yes on Measure U. I'm now leaning more towards no, just because the numbers have been crunched. My contingency with voting yes on Measure U was regards to the oversight commission that we proposed. And that was kind of a shot in the dark, at least in my opinion, to try to, tell city council to, have an oversight commission and then try to tell them, hey, this is how you should spend the funds, we want to increase it. It's a great idea, because we want to increase that, we were hoping, at least to get 20 million out of that to put in the community. At least my stipulation with that was, if we're gonna agree to that, at least agree to a community trust. If we're gonna funnel money into that, that way we have the oversight commission who has, some kind of leverage over that community trust, that you guys can agree at least to put money into that community trust. And once we get enough black persons or people like-minded, on that board, we can funnel that money back into the community. It's just a lot of politics behind it. So when that was shot down, I'm like, well, I don't trust politics. I grew up in Nation of Islam. We don't trust politicians. So it's like, now it's like the stipulations behind it is that, it can come up for re-election in March if we say no right now. It's poorly written. It's not gonna affect black nonprofits and black businesses who do get revenue from them right now. So in March, if we have the re-election, we also have time to write more about it. We can have more influence. That also, in my opinion, puts more pressure on them to listen to us on what we want. Because if we largely vote no, and Measure Youth passes, and they're like, well, why did it pass? What can we do to get you guys to vote? Well, here's what you guys can do. You guys can put this in the legislation. You guys can make whatever you need to do to make this more appealing to us. And come March, if we have that what we want, then we can vote yes to continue that 1 cent tax, or keep it at half a cent.
That's really interesting to me. I'm glad you broke it down like that. But I have a quick question about the black businesses and black nonprofits. Like, if anybody knows, how does this specific measure affect black businesses? And would it be on black people to start supporting more black businesses so that this wouldn't have to affect us as much? Does that make sense?
Well, the argument that I've seen for black businesses is that it will increase. Of course, it's going to increase spending, largely for black businesses that are already not competitive in this market. Black businesses struggle to get credit, to get capital, to help reduce manufacturing costs because we don't have access to it, and that's really all just a subject of racial discrimination from the banks. So let's say, I'm not sure, I haven't crunched the numbers. So let's say if a black business does largely buy wholesale in Sacramento, that not only increases the sales tax they have to put on us, but they're having an increased sales cost on them. And this is just general math from the top of my head. That means now we're probably gonna pay double of what they have, because they still have to make a profit. They're a for-profit business.
Right.
So they're being taxed, and then they're taxing their customers. That means ours is gonna go up for that tax that they got, and then for the tax that we're getting for them to still make a profit. Now, because they can't keep manufacturing costs down, that means they're probably gonna have to go out of business because they can't keep generating that, large amount of revenue, against retailers like, let's say, Amazon, Walmart, Target, who can, they manufacture all out of the country. They can keep the manufacturing costs down. They can do that. So the sales tax won't really affect them as much as it will black businesses. To the extent that it will run black businesses out of business, I can't say that. I haven't done the numbers. I'm not into economics and all that. But taxes largely will affect black businesses. And historically, any liberal economics will tell you that taxes will have disproportionately affected low income.
Okay, because I'm trying to figure out who is going to, like you said, it's going to be a split between the black community with the yes or no on Measure U, because in the hood, it's a lot of yes on Measure U's. When you start getting out the hood towards the white neighborhoods, it's no on Measure U. So it gets real confusing.
I just know sometimes we tend to vote against our own interests, because even though we vote for something, we don't end up with the money.
Right.
And the person who wrote this have already got a game plan of how you're not gonna get any of this money.
Right.
Because no other group relies on the vote but black people.
Exactly.
Which is
Right,
so like,
right.
are we really that different?
Right.
It's just my words.
That's
I mean, I
true.
think voting is important, but I think we need to know what we're gonna do after voting is over. I don't see no other group this hungry for voting.
Yeah, we rely on it.
Yeah, where
Right.
Latinos have the Mira Rancho, they have the
Yeah.
banks, they have
Keep
the
going.
television station, they have the Telemundo, they have everything. Asians have several banks. We have five to seven black banks in the whole United States. That's a bit ridiculous. We're the only group who depends on the system so much that we don't even come up with our own system. And I think part of it is identity, that we can't even all agree on what it really even means to be black.
Right. That
And
makes
I-
so
So
much
how can you be
sense.
how can you say I'm voting for you because you're black,
But I think that I think the misconception is with Measure U that it's only going to affect, if we say no, it's only going to affect black businesses and black people, and that's totally false, right? At the end of the day, we have to really look at the measures and we have to look at the extremes. Measure U is going to definitely affect community programs and community centers throughout Sacramento, right? We don't have those community services. It's not only going to be black people affected, it's going to be Asian, it's going to be Latino, it's going to be a lot of folks that bring their kids, even whites, right? And at the same time, when we look at Measure U, when we talk about the investment, trust me in understanding the fact that, yes, the politics of it, the wording of it, it's all wrong. And the way they kind of rolled it out, I think it was the ignorance of, you know, a lot of the public officials that really felt that they could just say whatever they wanted to say and people were going to buy on it. But having to understand the climate of Sacramento is totally different now, right? You're not going to have the kumbaya. People are challenging. People are more invested into figuring out what is and what's not and how does it benefit me. But we have to look at this. I basically simply measure you as public investment, private investment. If we talk about economic base, we don't have an economic base where we have a lot of private investors. Because if we had private investors, we wouldn't be talking about half of the conversations that we talk about on the daily, right? But when you think about the public investment, and we know that there are people that are around the table that are sitting here pushing for actual black economics in a way that is unapologetic, in a way where you look at Stockton Boulevard, in a way you look at Franklin. Now you have to say, if someone who has private money comes in, because they're going to come in regardless, and says, I want to buy that property over there. Now, the people of the public who are going to sit there and say, hey, whoa, well, that's our neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? We got some other plans. We about to go put condos up in here, and these condos don't even belong here. That kind of becomes a problem that I negate if we allow just the privateers to keep on doing what they do. Gentrification comes, you have us having no way to even negotiate some funds that can help us throughout the years or kind of to build. So when my attitude is, I'll rather gamble to see what it is before saying no, because we have to understand, America is not going to create a bill that's going to be specifically for black people. If that's going to be the lens of our conversation, well, black this, black that, I'm tuned off. Because I don't have no dams to help you black people. Y'all got to help yourself like everybody else. So that, I think, is where I'm looking at it. We're not going to be able to come back in March and black people think that we're going to be able to write a bill specifically for blacks when we are still teetering to the tot of Democrat or Republican. Well, maybe we should do independent. And no Negro talks about a black political party. So we have to really look at it on the strategic level, and that's where I'm seeing it right now. That's why I am voting yes on Measure U. It's not because I like the full-on plan. I like the fact that I know that back in the day, I wasn't nowhere close to the table. Now I am. And I have these young, beautiful, hungry people that are going to be with me at the table saying, no, we need to do this, we need to do that. Oh, they tripping? Okay, this is what we have to do.
I get you. I would like to know what y'all what should millennials be doing who are not at the table? Because the table, they change people all the time at the table. We're in the capital city of California. If you think they scared of a threat, give me a break.
Right.
America has not been standing all this long through the enslavement period, through Jim Crow, through everything. On you know, ooh, I'm scared of black people. Give me a break.
Right.
What can millennials do, even if you're not at the table?
Well, hi everyone.
You're cute.
Woo, all right. Well, I'm a millennial, and I just think that personally for me, I'm not political either, but I definitely make sure that I vote. The first time I voted was when I was 18 for Barack Obama, and that was like a huge thing. I was part of like history or, you know, making history, so that was my start in voting. So that has literally been my trajectory, and that has pushed me forward, kept me in the mix when it comes to voting, until I started to realize my vote doesn't count as much for president, and it counts more for the local and state governments. And so I do think voting is important, to answer your first question. I think my vote is important. My whole thing is about how I can get, because like many men have said, it seems like a split. And I just look on social media, I'm like, okay, I have half my friends saying this, half my friends saying that. So I can see the split within the community, but my whole thing is I try to get my family on the same page at least, because I feel like that's how it starts to get everybody else on the same page.
That's real.
And so it's a very small piece of the city, but I think that is how it starts to get everybody on the same page, to get everybody understanding the importance of these different propositions and things like that and how the system works. So I think just like having a time before voting is over to like discuss everything, and you don't have to agree necessarily. The goal is that you do, but I think that's a start. But for millennials, they just have to vote. I know a lot of people who are like, it's not important. It don't count no way. I'm like, no, that's every 4 years, every 2 years. It really does count. It's each vote is counted as opposed to electoral college. And so I think that, like I said, millennials can start getting involved in just learning more about the processes so that they feel ready when they go, and they feel less discouraged when it comes time to vote, and they don't feel pressured from the elders who are about to die and like making all these decisions for us, and they're about to die.
That's real.
And so I feel like they need to understand that millennials or young people are the majority because everybody else is dying off, and the people who are dying off shouldn't be making the decisions that we're gonna have to live with for the next decade. So I think they should understand that their vote matters, and it really does, because you're the majority at this point.
I just want to say
Let me
something.
say something real quick. Okay, I agree with what you were saying. It really starts at the home first, because some people can be woke in the family, some people can be coons, some people can be on all different levels. But if some people can be woke in your family, some people can be coons,
Okay,
some people
you know
can
who
be
that's
conscious. Listen, everybody in the family, it has to start with the family first to be on one accord. Because if your family don't even have the same people that you're voting for, how are you gonna tell somebody else to vote for somebody? Because I might be going out in the streets, but somebody else might be going out in church. We got two different audiences. So what's your agenda and what's mine? We're already disconnected right there. And then one thing I have to say is, again, I agree with Kayla, but being on a college campus where it's really diverse, especially with the age range, I've been seeing a lot of elders talk about they're not voting because it doesn't count. And I think that with their negativity is trickling down to us, because although it is important for the millennials to vote, we're taking up so much already in our lives that we have, we're also adding on voting, and we have to do the voting. We have to care about the people that want to be called them, they. We gotta care about every single thing. That's a whole different thing. But don't come after me, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the millennials
The
have so much
environment,
stuff to
Yeah,
carry.
we have a lot to carry.
Yeah, and it's just like now, but we cannot forget though that the baton was dropped a long time ago, and even though we picked it up when Barack Obama was in office for various reasons, there's people that's influencing us that are older than us that are telling us negative things about voting as well. So we have to relearn, unlearn, relearn everything again, and just to make sure that we have the right vote is already stressful enough. So we're just like, oh, we get to vote, yay, but what do we do? And it's like the black community's waiting for you, the white community waiting for you to fail. We got a lot going on.
So I have to
Wait,
say,
I'm sorry, I have one more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so because I hear this a lot about how so this is what I think, okay? I think that it just baffles my mind that black people have a hard time getting it together, because real talk, in the Asian community, I bet you they all vote for the same thing. I bet you they all said, okay, we're gonna vote for these, yes, there's some type of communication that happens that they are telling each other what they need to make sure they vote for this year. I bet you, because the reason why I know this is because they have this other thing in how they use their money, which is there's a bunch of families, right? They all put their money in a pot, so one person can come up that year. The other people wait their turn. And it just the cycle keeps going, so that eventually all the families came up. So I know for a fact they do that same type of thing with the politics.
Well, I have to say this. I know I have to say this because you all are all college graduates.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping your study that one of the things you learned is not to really compare yourselves to other groups, because African Americans did not come here for a better life. We did not come here as immigrants, and so we didn't. You can't compare us to another group. I just use that in terms of us needing to vote. There's a reason why we need to vote. There's a reason why you sat here and just said elders are going to die. In my tradition, we don't talk to elders like that, because elders put in work. Old people don't put in work, but elders put in work. So I know a lot of young people who know they would not be here doing anything, going to college, owning their home.
Amen.
Some of my girls come from generational wealth. So they meant that their ancestors and elders left them something.
Right.
So y'all represent a group, but you don't represent the whole group.
And
And I think that's one thing we do as black people. We try to do this. We're all in the same boat, and we're all not in the same boat. Some of us come from culture, tradition. Some of us have left money for people when they got older. Some of our ancestors have put their lives on the line and did all the best they could, given us all the best that they could. We had a a government-sponsored program called the crack cocaine era that was put on our people.
Talk to them.
And so somebody had to stand in the gap when everybody was doing themselves and selling drugs and using drugs. There were people who stood in the gaps, and now they're elders. So I think we can always have a conversation, but I think we gotta not let other people make us look like we don't love each other.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We gotta do that. I know you from the nation, so I've rocked with a lot of people from the nation. But I feel like we could definitely talk about some things, but I think we gotta respect the shoulders we standing on. We can't allow people to make us think our ancestors didn't do nothing. I went to that lynching museum in Montgomery, Alabama,
Girl, I'm trying to
and
go.
that shit was real.
Mm.
And so I think this voting is nice, but y'all got a lot of work to do. See, young people back in the day were active because I was one of them. Young people in the day, even in the 60s, people fought and died for their right. People that said their parents were maids and had to take white people's shit. You don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. I make my job. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes the enemy look just like me. So I have to know, how do I deal with them, but how do I make sure I keep that door open for us to create our own? Not that you have to go work at the state. So I think as we talk about this, I'm challenging y'all. I'm saying to y'all got all the information. Y'all got all the technology. If you don't know something, go to YouTube. That's what Keith's telling us. Y'all not make it. Go to YouTube, Ms. Rowe. What are y'all gonna do? Besides point fingers, what y'all gonna do as young people?
And that's what I was going to hit on as well, is that I do feel like there is, we have these conversations about consciousness and about awareness and spreading that and being woke and working woke and all these things. But the reality is that we do have to acknowledge that there are plenty of black people who are privileged. When we talk about privilege, it is not simply based on your skin tone. Sometimes it's based on your mentality. Sometimes it's based on your social class. Sometimes it's based on your geographic location. Sometimes it's based around the demographic that you are around. So it's just, when we talk about privilege is just not, and because obviously we all hear and see the rebuttals of the white folks who be like, I struggled in life, I'm not privileged. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, they don't see their privileges, but I do feel like blacks don't see their privileges as well. I can talk about my privilege being lighter complexion, being from California. You know what I'm saying? My grandpa from Arkansas. When I talked to him earlier today, he was like, blacks, he literally said blacks in California. Because again, it's a certain level of privilege that's associated with being in this liberal state and being in this open, free, hippie, alleged, you know what I'm saying? But it's still, but we say that it's alleged because we are comparing it with these ideals of, if it was so free, we wouldn't deal with any racism. But obviously that's not the case. But in comparison, that's where our privilege comes in. Because in comparison to Arkansas, to Louisiana, to Mississippi, to Florida, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to compare, and then it's like, okay, there is a level of privilege there. So some of us have just enough privilege to not have to care. And other people, they don't have that privilege to where the politics don't matter to them. When people say, I don't follow politics, because you have the privilege not to worry about politics. If you had everything to lose, which is really where we are, but if you were aware of that, if you experience that every day, then I think that the mentality and the perspective would be different, and realizing, oh, like you said, the people before us gave me my privilege to not care. You know what I mean? But if I don't care today, who's gonna care next? Nobody's gonna care. So we have to keep, like you said, that momentum going and continue that, because I do feel like in terms of generationally, like I said, I can speak for my grandfather, and who's 84, you know what I'm saying? And the involvement, he wasn't born and raised, but his family coming from the Great Migration, coming to the West Coast and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? All the Bay Area, that's what it is. But then when you have my mother's generation, who they're in their 55, 60, like whatever, they benefited from the work that was put in from the generation before them, the Title IXs and you know what I'm saying, like all these things that allowed them to infiltrate different organizations that they were being discriminated against before. When they got into it, did y'all continue? Did y'all, for it to continue to trickle down for us to keep fighting?
What
So I think
can millennials contribute to the struggle that we've been in America? What can y'all contribute to that?
I'm gonna say economics. You'll always hear me say economics.
Tell us how economics.
I think largely we've been focused on politics, and like our economic prosperity has been diminished. In the early 1900s, we've had plenty of black folks who owned land. They were received that land, but then after the Civil War and Reconstruction happened, they took that land back and gave it back to the plantation owners, and we were sharecroppers. We lost every form of equity that we're, almost set to have. They bombed every form of our prosperous neighborhoods. We had plenty of Black Wall Streets going throughout the early 1900s, and they were bombed. Then we began to rely on the Democratic Party, So the Democratic switch from, we're largely,
Republicans first, and then
so we were Republicans. So the Republicans favored, the laborers and the poor. That ideology kind of switched in the 1930s and 40s under FDR, beginning to implement the New Deal. Essentially, that's when he promised, the public housing and all of that that we never really even got because it was done through state discrimination. I can go on about that
I know.
as well.
Right.
But I just think millennials need to know that part. So when we say why don't we
Exactly.
have anything, I often wonder what we be learning. Because
Exactly.
once you understand that, it's not so much a pointing the finger. It's like, this is what I'm gonna do now that I got some stuff. Now that I've worked on some things. This is what I'm gonna get. Because also we have to, millennials. I'm going like this to y'all. Y'all gotta work with each other. Y'all gotta even that sister that's in church that may appear to be asleep. If I could depend on her to do a few things, I'm gonna use her just for those things. I don't want her to be all the way rah-rah in the street, because that ain't her position. It's kind of like y'all gotta really put forth this is what we need to do, and this is how y'all can help us.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay,
She
because I feel like with the Black Student Union at City College, one thing that we do is that we don't push everybody to go protest. We push whatever you want to do. So if you want to learn more about your culture, cool. If you want to understand something else, we'll find somebody to help you. Okay, cool. But some people there's just really no helping, and I feel like it's not the fact that we can't help you. You're a lost cause. It's just a lot of Black people's brains, especially millennials and the Generation X and whatever they want to be called under us, man, it's hard for us to try to recruit people and get everybody on the same mindset, because some of us are coming out of growing up differently to get on some conscious shit, and then to try to recruit other people is very much harder. And I think that millennials do have a big job to do as far as working together and group economics and all type of shit like that. But being that a lot of us are creative, so I'm I can't tell you when the New Deal was. I know some of this stuff I'm talking about. I'm just nodding, okay, cool. But it's some of us are creative, and we have to use our voice in different ways, whether it's writing or art or activism or whatever else. So I think what it really has to be is that the millennials as a whole need to come together on the Black agenda first, and then weed out the people that's not with it, and they can go do them work for the white people. But the rest of us, we either gonna work underground or work on top of the ground and in the offices, or get whatever we need to do, get in them positions and work together to make each other thrive. So it's all these people that are millennials and HBCU graduates, I don't know none of them that came back to help the community except for maybe 4. And them were people that I grew up with.
Right.
Out of everybody else, HBCU graduates that I know, and no shade to them, I don't see them helping. So that's when I say, when I mean drop the ball, I mean drop the baton in government, economics, helping your community, helping everybody. So it's middle class, lower class, whatever, conscious-minded people like us that's about to be looked at as Black identity extremists, trying to get other people on the same page, and we don't know if we're gonna get shot by a Black person, white person, cop, teacher, anybody, because we trying to just be Black and live. So when we trying to educate ourselves, sometimes for us it's it's not a little too late, but we're just trying to understand it. So for me, I'm trying to understand politics, and really, I'm guilty because I didn't try to understand the law until my friend Stefan was killed by the police this year. So I didn't really try to understand it until that happened. So now I'm slowly learning, but it's a lot.
And that triggers such an important concept, because there are so many people who they don't care until they have to. They don't care. They haven't gone through anything. So again, if we go on the idea of privilege, if we consider millennials in general, and you say, okay, what have millennials gone through that really makes them care about something that has unified them, that has made, the same way Generation X, I feel like I was in middle school when Columbine happened, right? I think I was in middle school, maybe. And that was the first time, from my recollection, of going to school and somebody shooting up a school. I'm like, who's shooting up school? You mad about practice? I'm like, you talking about the game? What's the problem? You know what I'm saying? But then when we consider how many school shootings are, literally, there was one last week, and they literally went back into session 2 hours after the shooting happened. And they was well, if parents want to come get their kids, they can, but the bell's gonna ring in 10 minutes. Like, what are y'all still doing? Because in my opinion, it just really shows the lack of value of life, the disconnect with the impact of death. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, our lives have to matter, but I think that Generation X is seeing, like, these school shootings are jeopardizing my future. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need to be able to come to school and worry about this math test and not worried about you bullying old boy the other day, and I don't know if he's gonna have a gun tomorrow. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that has brought them, and we see so much effort around the country, different schools, different people, different backgrounds, uniting because they have gone through something that is impacting and traumatic. It is impacting their generation. For us, I feel like with millennials, we've come up with internet. We've come, like we're coming
But we
through
also see
this.
9/11 too. We see some traumatic shit. We see 9/11.
But how much? I was
You know
11 years
what I'm
old when
saying?
9/11 happened, and
But-
so I was like, "What? How did that affect me in my adulthood? What has happened in my adulthood that I can really get behind? That's gonna back." You know
But
what I'm
I
trying
think
to say?
that, I think also that I feel one of the key points is you've been raised in a system. You've been raised in a system which says if you do A, B, and C, you can have this. And what I mean by that, it's like go to school, get some education. Here's this job. You can get a master. A BA will get you 60 or 50. A master will get you maybe 80 and 100. And if you shut your mouth, you'll be straight. And see the difference. I think that coming up when I was an 80s kids, we were still on that of a white person, any other person that wasn't black said the N-word.
Oh.
It doesn't even matter. You know what I'm saying? You're getting laid out.
Yeah.
Where in this in this now generation, it's been embraced by every culture, and it's almost kind of like, wait a minute, this white rappers now saying the N-word, and it's almost something that's repulsive to me because we've never dealt with that in that sense because it was not condoned. Now it's, to me, when we are relayed and rely on a system, the system of white supremacy, every single one of us, and it gives us all these great fruits and grapes, right? These berries, there's this pineapple, right? There's this mango, and they're feeding us, and like, oh, this is great, I'm getting fed. Why would I want to go back out to the dirt, right? So when we're given so much, think about it, back in our day, Queen, when we were talking about the 80s, sports athletes still had to get a job on the off season, right? They still, yes. They still had
Everybody
to.
didn't make that.
No,
Michael
everybody
Jordan
didn't make that. Michael Jordan money.
cracked that, yeah.
Michael Jordan was the guy that cracked that door open and created a real business. It was literally, sports was about loyalty. Sports was always a business per se, but it wasn't a phenomenon to where now we're sitting there stopping everything we do. If there's a Game 7 in the NBA Finals, stopping everything we do, we make the Super Bowl a holiday. So the stakes where you have so many black people that are into sports and entertainment, and now they're getting paid buku bucks. That it's like their predecessor. So now before you have, Sidney Poitier, right? Back in the day where he was a high paid actor, but he still wasn't making no money. Like, give me another white actor back in those days, like
what's that guy?
Marlon Brando or something like that, right? It was like, Sidney Poitier, you're a great actor, but Marlon Brando's making this amount. Now it's like Denzel Washington, you're making the same amount of money as a Harrison Ford. So there's kind of an even kill in that situation. So it kind of helps Negroes get more comfortable in a system that's saying, well, this system's providing for me. How am I going to leave a system that Negroes are saying, this ain't us? Well, how you saying that's not us when I'm sitting here getting that money?
To the party, like getting shot by the police or having something happen.
Yeah, you go to
get
tragedies.
an official fight to the fight, which somebody has always been fighting. Somebody has always been fighting. But my question when I was coming up as a young person, it was like, you got to do something now. Like, everything in your mind is like, how am I going to contribute? How am I going to be a part of the continuum? That's what I'm saying to y'all. What would y'all be contributing, even if you just woke up? A lot of people just wake up, honestly, but then you go and do something. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily criticize. You say, I don't know what they did, but this is what we're doing over here. We're never going to all wake up and help each other. That's the dream. Get up out the dream. Mm-hmm. In Africa, there's many tribes. They've been all over Africa. There's many tribes. None of them all agree to nothing. Seriously, one thing y'all should check out, all you young folks, look at the face of Africa. It shows you all those African countries got their independence and how the young people literally put their lives on the line. Not like I'm cussing and people may not like me tomorrow. No, like dead bodies in the street. Yeah, so look at that. What is change? They had to figure out how was we gonna try to get rid of colonialism, and some of them couldn't get rid of it. That's why they, sometimes you get totally corrupted with it. But I'm saying, as young people, what are y'all going to do? What is the plan? So that us old people and the elders can figure out, how can I be supportive? The young people I'm around, like, what do you need? How can I help you?
Man.
And people not gonna help you if you talking bad about it. They're just not gonna do it, because I don't even do that. I'm like, because I got like I don't see you. I got that down to a whole science. I didn't come to the crack era unscathed, but I did know how to walk past people who I thought was like not gonna help me get to where I gotta go.
And that's why they love the divide.
Yep.
That's why they love the divide. They want it because we do not know our history.
Yep.
We don't know that we civilized this nation, right? We don't know that we were Moors going to Spain, the European countries, and doing what we was doing and taking over. They don't know that. They won't teach you that, because if you get taught that at an early age and you start understanding, you adapt to that. You just like, when you get to that slavery part, you're like, oh, okay, I get this one, right? But they start you right over here, so you like, oh man, this is crazy. I don't even really want to be black like that. And then they find you in different sets where I have to be this kind of black person, because that becomes another thing. Now I'm not black enough because I'm not from the hood. You know what I'm saying?
All of that is an illusion.
It's all illusion of a system. So it's to me, it's almost kind of like we have to create a plan that takes all of us, right? And voting is a part of that piece. But I think that if we don't strategically come together building things where now that person who may not look like me, or the person that does look like me, because you got to remind you, in Sacramento, we've had 4 council members that were black.
We got 4 now or 3?
We have 3 now. We had 4 council members that were black. And you are hard pressed to get any of these niggas to really talk any black talk, right? And the only time they talk black talk.
That should be outlawed.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, but you should run against them. That's all I'm saying.
No, I feel
No,
that.
I want to see some young people like, I'm running, Ms. Rowe. Would you work with me? Would you help me?
Man.
That's what I'm waiting on. See, I come from the young people that was like that.
Yeah, we need
Like,
to.
we
We
run-
need more.
we need y'all to run.
We need more millenniums to get out of the system mind frame and be like, I'm doing something totally polar opposite. Like, work the system the way you need to, but then adjust. Go ahead, Ken.
Well,
But we
to
have
comment to that, and you have one millennials to run. We've had plenty of black politicians throughout history. You can look when Bobby Seale and them ran in Oakland. That didn't work out for them because they're going up against the Kaiser regime. You know,
The boy knows his history.
Capitalism and money, no matter what we do, is like, and if you look at history, when black people have ran, we have been, censored because of money. At the end of the day, that's why I go back. I've studied, I always tell my friends about how essentially every one of our black political thinkers has said something about economic autonomy and economic liberation. Start with Marcus Garvey. You go down to W.B. Du Bois, even said it essentially once later in his life. Patrice Lumumba, who was the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, said it. You had Muammar Gaddafi, who tried to do that. And look at every one of them were either exiled or killed by America. You got Malcolm X saying it. MLK eventually got to that. So I'm saying, like, it begins with economic autonomy and the beginning of our economic kind of like governance to help propel us into our own economic position. That way we can influence politics. Because right now we can't hold anyone accountable. We can't control our own politics.
We can't.
Even if we do,
But y'all ain't about that life. You can, but y'all not about that life.
Put it like this, okay? So like, let's say this. I definitely do want to run for a position in politics. However, with this kind of binary system within politics, you either have to choose Republican or Democrat, or you're not going to get any endorsement to win on whatever level you want to win. We can take the DA example. When they didn't get the endorsement from
I know
but they
only one of them pulled back.
They didn't give him his endorsement. They're all supposed to be democratically elected leaders. He didn't get the votes that he needed. So I'm saying, like, think about being a black person who wants to help the grassroots, who want to come in and affect change. Like, something I definitely want to do that. However, you have to give away some of those ideals to fit the democratic agenda, and that's where you kind of fail. We want to run for office. I want to run for office, but that notion is like, do I really want to run under that democratic agenda? No one with the Democrats have done to my people historically.
No,
Like,
I
really
agree.
do that?
I agree with that, but I also think we're brilliant enough to run on all the strategies.
Mm-hmm.
We're brilliant enough to run on all the strategies. That's to be honest. And I'm not saying the system's gonna work for it, but sometimes some things is like you're supposed to use it to have your opponents think you're over here doing this while we over here doing this.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we think like it's gotta be one way or no way. It's kind of like you need all of them at the table. Like, we need everybody. What we don't have is the military. What we don't have is people's gonna lay the law down. So when I say you're not about that life, every ethnic group that came over here has that part of their community that we don't talk about. That's why you're not gonna get up there and talk shit about Jewish people, because you'll be handled that come for you in the daytime with the lights on, with a crowd.
Yeah.
But we ain't about that life. We was about that life a little bit in the 80s though, because it was a different mindset. And it was a different.
Well, because we were still
that's
out
what
there.
I'm talking about. Like, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to say too much. Cause
No, I'm just saying,
all on
I
my
think we
phone.
forget.
But
No,
I feel
the
you on
government already
that
on the
though.
phone.
You right.
That's you already in trouble already.
But I'm not saying we do that. I'm just saying I think we forget that we are a nation. So when I say we are nations or many nations, it has a diplomat, it has its military, it has everything in it. But for somehow we get glued to this one piece because I think we don't realize how powerful we really are. Even in slavery, we still made stuff happen. We still created things in
But
slavery.
I think that it was much easier in slavery or during that time
no,
because
it
there was the reason that I'm saying the statement is that thank you. The reason that I think that it was easier, not in terms of strategy or in terms of like execution, not in terms of that. What I'm saying in terms of unification, in terms of being able to identify what's the issue, what's the problem. It was much easier to, as black folk, they the problem. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's very easy to just point it out and we can unify and go against that very clear-cut problem. But like you said, when we are screaming to the world that the black experience is not a monolithic experience, but then at the same time, we are all banking on this monolithic experience. It doesn't really make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? Sorry, I didn't mean to
The room's violent.
you know what I'm saying? But that's what I'm saying.
right,
Like, as we're trying to explain to everybody that you have different experiences, you have people who have different people in their families who come from different economic backgrounds, who come, you know what I'm saying, that we have to consider everybody to have this inclusive.
We have to.
But that's what I'm saying is that we are all moving as if, just like how Barry said, unless you come from the port, okay, then I don't want to hear her. So I could be trying to go and make this difference, and they could be like, oh, this light-skinned girl. Oh, she come from Greenhaven, or you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, okay, but if we're talking about something that we can all benefit from collectively, we have to stop thinking about each other and separating ourselves. Like, that is, in my opinion, something that is preventing us from having, again, that unification that we need to move forward. Because if I have a certain set of ideals that I'm very passionate about, and again, we could both have two different markets, two different niches. If I'm saying, okay, I want to focus on family dynamics, family structure, how can we improve those? How can we have seminars for women, seminars for men and fathers and broken homes and all this stuff? And that's my focus because I feel like that's how we'll build our communities. If we feel better with our self-esteem, if we feel better about the trajectory of our lives and what we're capable of. When you come from a family where you see everybody go to jail, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a different perspective when you have everybody going to college in your family. So it's hard to have people just come together and always just see, like how you were saying, this one ideal, and we all got to move from this one perspective. We don't have to. You can have your part, I can have my part, but the point is like you're saying, everybody has to put in their part so that we can all collectively benefit from the efforts of everybody. That's my opinion on that.
I don't know. I mean, I like what you were saying. I think that's cool. I just feel like I just
say what you
feel
Just
like,
being
you know what I'm
honest.
saying? Like, I like what you were saying. Like, everybody has to play their part. And when it comes to millennials, like, everybody is responsible for everyone, but in reality, in my opinion, is black people first. Like, I'm caring about how I can help you first. And I'm just like, for me, as much as I don't understand politics, I'm trying to learn it. It's like, since I know Khalil, I'm like, okay, Khalil, he's a smart brother, cool. He gonna take us to the top. He's in law, cool. But it's like, I can't just depend on one person. But there's so many other young people that's millennials that are in the field of that. I'm like, okay, cool. I might can help y'all in my creativeness over here. Like, for me, I personally am for the advancement and empowerment of black people, and mostly women first, but not to be divisive. So for me, it's just like, I'm trying to get me an army. I'm like, we can do the politics, but where is our army? Where is our people at? So it's like, we can be all, you know, piecing everybody in the front, but who working behind the scenes and who got the wires off, and we trying to build some shit. So when it's them versus us in real life, we gotta get down with we gotta get the strap, like 50 Cent said, gotta get the strap. And I personally believe like the voting is real, you know what I'm saying? But hey, like, you gotta get the strap sometimes, and you gotta use what's best for you and your community, and then move as a whole, because there's not ever, to me personally, I don't believe that black people can ever be unified as one specifically only because of the fact that there's so many subcategories of black people. We have the coon black people, we got the woke black people, we got the sleep black people, we got the elders, we have the old people who aren't putting in money into no type of the black community, we have the people that are part of organizations that aren't coming back to the community. We got so many different people that don't want to be black,
people,
and we got all type of
you
stuff.
got black people here from Africa, they're here working their plan, and I
Right,
ain't
and they got their plan, and I ain't even mad. You know, but it's just like there's so many subcategories of us. It's like I don't know how we'll ever be on one page, and it definitely does start with voting first. But I'm just like, somebody gotta get the strap. I mean, it don't start with voting first, but somebody gotta get the strap.
I don't think it starts. I don't think it starts with voting first.
Voting is crucial, though.
I think it definitely starts with at least one thing that we need to do, and this is kind of something that we haven't touched on, is that breaking down the barriers and the conditions and complexes that we've been passed down from our elders, from slavery on down. Like, they broke a Negro, and it's still, you still see that today. The Willie Lynch letters and the post-traumatic slave syndrome and everything, and that's just all has been passed down. Now we have these these transgressions that are in our communities where we're afraid of police, because of historically and what they do to our community contemporarily. We have these divisions within our communities. Like, why is it so hard for us to support black businesses? Why can't we love one another? And those are like complexes that stem from slavery and post-traumatic slave disorder. They broke a Negro. They made a Negro Christian. They did all of that to
Careful when you say that, brother.
Some of us Muslims like theirs.
Hey, I mean, we can talk about that another time.
No.
If we look at how they use that to break us down, there's empirical evidence behind that. But
no doubt.
But like, if we look at how we don't love our own people, and how where does that stem from? We need to eradicate that and kind of get rid of that, that self-hate mentality that's been established, and that kind of, hasn't been acknowledged by anyone. Like, a sister in our BSU meeting at Sac State made this point that, like, our elders went through kind of the time of, survival, and now it's kind of a time for millennials and our generation to go through self-actualization. That's what we're working on right now. Like, how can we actualize and kind of go from that survival mindset that our parents were doing and our grandparents are going through, from slavery to the civil rights movement, to now having some of the privileges that we have to be able to continue to move forward, and how do we take care of that while taking care of the trauma that we've carried, we're carrying on the backs of us as well.
Right on.
So it's like, how do we take care of that? And that's kind of where I feel like we need to start. We need to kind of get at the grassroots of our own communities and tackle the self-hate that we have in our own communities. That way, once the self-hate is eradicated or goes down, then we can flourish in taking care of the black family household. We can take care of the black children, the black women, the black businesses. And
But both of y'all are part of BSU, right?
She's at Sac City. I'm at Sac City.
No. Y'all part of BSU, right?
Oh, yeah.
All of y'all get together?
Don't speak on our
No, I'm just asking.
We do try to, like, our BSU has went to Sac State BSU meetings and have tried on our end. That's what I will say. We have tried on our behalf to get with them and for them to come out in the community outside of the school. I don't know about the rest of it, but we be in the streets, we be in the field, we do workshops, and we try to get people to understand. But we do try to get other BSUs to unite with us, but everybody ain't with that.
I tell people.
I'm saying the commonality is the BSU Black Student Union.
Oh yeah.
So like I work with all the BSUs and dang near all the high schools here. So that's how I get my foot into a lot of the schools and do stuff with them, because some of them are needing support as well. But that to me is something that can draw people together. If y'all all in the BSU trying to learn about yourself or do whatever, that's one way of gathering. So I'm saying, see, the reason why history is important for me is because I get to get some ideas and then I improve on. Like, we made it do it like we did it back in the day, but I know there has to be something to pull us together. And what I really know to be true is that there's some young folks out there getting it in. I may not know them, Barry may not know them, but there's some of them there busy. A lot of the girls who I know who went off to HBCUs, they like the South. There's like black people together down here, at least they're trying to stick together. They didn't want to come back here to Sacramento where black folks say we can't do nothing, ain't nobody don't nobody want to come to that kind of energy, because I know, I like you say, we're going to get this done. I don't care if it's 4 of us show up, we're going to rock it like it's 100 of us.
But they gotta have that Sankofa and come back too, though, because one thing.
No, but they are coming back. They made their community where they are, there where black people are. I have friends who moved all the way to Africa. They good with that. I'm not moving to Ghana. I love it. I've been all over Africa, but I don't want to live there. But I love the people there. But some of them, it felt like home for them. Because as black people, we've always, that's why you got to know your history. We've always been pushed around the place. We can never root anywhere. And we can never put our roots anywhere. When somebody felt like they found something that's home, I'm always happy for them. But I like to have them here, yeah. But sometimes it's hard being to West. This is the Wild West, y'all. This is the Wild West. And so for us, it's like, I feel like if we here at this table and y'all all connect, y'all should get yourselves in the room and figure out what are we going to work on first. Just start with what you got. And I'm saying, that's when we become a real voting block. where they be trying to figure out how do we get these young people to get on board. You gotta think about that, y'all. So as we look at this, what's the plan for the millennials?
Well, when I was in college, we actually did have all the VSUs in the colleges, the UC system, and some of the CSUs come to a conference. ABC, you guys go to that now?
Mhm.
Cool. That's pretty much where we put all the problems on a plate and figure out how to solve them, because we technically can't be with each other all around California on a regular basis. So we have our point people, and the goal is to be working toward a common goal in our separate cities. So that's been happening for like a good 10 years now, in college. But how many people are in college is part of it, you know.
Right on.
There's not as many, like, well, to be quite frank, like, most of the people I graduated with, I can maybe say there was like 500 of us, maybe 50 of us went to college. The other 450 are married with a bunch of children, which is great, you know, and they're not the ones who are trying to move forward in anything. They're happy with their little family, and that's perfect for them. So when you go to college at UC Davis, we were 3% of the population, which was what, 700 out of 30,000. I know the number's probably not right, you know, but that's what it was. It was like 700 of
Right
us.
on, sis.
It fluctuated between like 6 and 1,000. The whole time I was there for 5 years, and that was including graduate students. And so we do that. Like when I went to college, that's what we did. We did that. We went back to the elementary schools, the middle schools, the high schools to try to get them educated about themselves. We did those different things. We did the common goals, even though our environments were different. Some UCs had 10% black people, so they had lots more than we did, but we still had common goals. And we still were like, this is what we want to get done for the year until we meet again. Who's the point person? Okay, what's the plan? So that happens. It's just it needs to happen on a greater scale, because 700 black youth in college is not gonna necessarily change the dynamic of an entire city in the manner we were going about it. We need help. And so, you know, I believe that there's a lot of issues across generations in the black community. And so, like, I grew up, you know, my mom's 55, she was born in the 60s. Like, she grew up, like, her mom would whoop her if she looked at an adult crazy. And so, I understand that upbringing. However, it's like, at what point do we get to where, like, okay, I'm an adult now, please hear me, as opposed to, you're a child, respect me. And that's part of it. I feel like my generation, at least the latter part, and younger, we're about that respect that the older generations don't necessarily think we deserve because we're younger. And so that is an issue. I have a hard time talking to my own mama sometimes because she still thinks I'm her 10-year-old daughter who don't have opinions about things. And that's problematic. That, I feel like, discourages a lot of the younger generation to even get involved because we're not taken seriously or we're seen as disrespectful because we're speaking up. And instead of, you know, trying to, like, what I've experienced is people coming at you crazy in public. Like, I don't like that. Just period. I can have something wrong with, like, I can have a problem with Barry, and I'm not gonna come at Barry in public like that. We're gonna have a conversation in private so that nobody knows the trials. They just see the work. And that's the problem I feel is a huge problem in the black community, is that it's two different problems, but one, that we're too comfortable with degrading our own in public. And then the other is that after a certain time, I would say after people from the 60s, the generation after that, 70s, 80s, 90s, have a different type of perspective about the respect and what it should look like. I feel like as an adult, I'm almost 30 years old, I should be able to speak to anybody clearly, and they should not feel offended because I am telling them how I feel. Now, I'm not necessarily gonna be like, be this, be that. I have a brain, like, and I have manners, but I'm like, get beyond don't talk to me like that, and actually hear what I'm saying. And that's I feel that's a huge problem between the older generation, like, and then in the younger generation is they can't talk because it's always your tone, your tone, your tone. And I'd be like, okay, I ain't gonna talk to you then no more. If it's my tone, instead of just hearing what I gotta say and then correct me about my tone later. But you can't get past my tone to hear these gems I'm dropping because I'm your niece or I'm your daughter. And so I feel like it's a huge part of why a lot of millennials and the generation after us don't get involved, because like I said, who's occupying these positions? They are older. They're significantly older. They're like in their 70s a lot of times. And we're 25 to 35 at this point, or 23 to 35 at this point. So we're like they children or sometimes they grandchildren. And so I think that's part of it is within the Black community, we have to sometimes get beyond the watch your tone and more about like, okay, I see that you're doing what you gotta do. And you sent me to college to learn these things. So when I go to college and I become more articulate because I took some classes or whatever,
Right.
and let me come back and speak in that confident, articulate way without you feeling offended. And I see that happen a lot in public and private. It's hard for the elders and the older generation to get past the tone. They miss it because of the tone.
So do you think that because of that, you know, we're talking about tone, so our language barrier, our communication barrier, right? Our bridging the gap is what we were trying to do.
Mhm.
Do you feel because of that communication, I can't really convey to you what I need you to do, does that operate into the lens of us not doing the right thing and voting in the process? Is that what some kind of,
I hope not, because I hope you're smarter.
you know what I'm saying? Because I think,
That's what I hope.
because I think that when we're layering these problems and we're specifically speaking upon these different things, at the end of the day, November 6th is coming, right?
Yep.
And we have to find some kind of way, because regardless and this is what I think is hilarious about Black people, whether it's the Negro that got the great job, or the Negro that got all the degrees, or it's the Negro that's just a gangster, he don't care about nothing, or it's even the prostitute down the street. We're all Negroes, right? And we're going to be looked upon as the same thing, no matter what we feel or believe they may think about us. What they think about us is what they're showing us.
Mhm.
Whenever we try to say, I want to separate myself a little bit from white people in this system, guess what ends up happening? They pull your ass right back in. Something ends up happening. You've seen it with Bill Cosby. You know what I'm saying? You've seen it with the Michael Jacksons of the world. You've seen it with so many different, characters that we praise and that they've raised us to praise, that we just sit to, now it's time to bring you back. If we're saying all these issues, and if I have all these issues with you, you have all these issues with me, how can we come on a common ground to even decide on what we need to truly vote for and how to be strategic? Because if you are still holding these issues that happened 10 years ago, or if you feel like your word is pretty much shit to my word because I'm the big elder and you can't say nothing, how can we even go into a poll and really agree to say this is a decision moving forward? Because the reality is, you've been saying it's up to the millennials. No, it's not. It's up to all of us. I'm just saying.
I'm saying they have to contribute. They can't.
No, and I think that a lot of them. I think a lot of them are not, in some senses, the ones I'm dealing with, they don't really blame. They're trying to get educated on what it is. I turn around and I look at some of the conservative ones who've done Kanye crazy and doing stuff like that, going against the grain, breaking whatever black hole that we have in our mind because they want to do it to be in tune with white supremacy. Where do we get to the place where our communication comes to a level like, yes, I apologize, I hear that, got it. What are we going to do moving forward? Because we all need each other.
I think that there's so much desire to have a response and to have a resolution, but the reality is that we have to, just the same way that he was speaking on, there are residual effects from the enslavement, from the oppression, from the disconnect in families, from trauma, from everything. So I think that there is hopefully an opportunity for Black people to realize that our trauma is real, and that it can be worked through. We can't just keep thinking that we're going to be able to compete with other minority groups or the white people or all this, when we've had all this trauma and all these things that have happened over this time.
Keep going.
And it's like, okay, but how do we heal from that? How do we grow from that? Just like me and Barry were talking about yesterday, if every white person died in America right now, but if everybody did, like, you know what I'm saying? What will we do? What people do we have that know what to do, that know how to move, that know what to take charge, know how to be leaders? Like, and the reality is that that is due from the damage that we have had for so long. The same way that I was speaking about privilege before, and some of us have the privilege, like I said, to care, or the privilege not to care, right? To not care about privilege, to not care about voting or politics, but then some of us don't have the privilege to care about voting because we work in 2 jobs, because we got 3 kids, because my grandma, who's not gonna have that life insurance, is on dialysis. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have the opportunity to plan your future when you're surviving every day, as he's touched on before as well. So we have to be more, in my opinion, more forgiving to our people who don't have those same luxuries as we do to study that time. They trying to sleep. They got to double to work tomorrow. Like, you know what I'm saying? So if that's not your reality, then you can't just be like, oh, he lazy. Oh, he ain't trying to do nothing. It's like, bro, I'm out here living. I'm trying to live and get home and put food on my table. Like, unfortunately, I don't have the luxury to go to marches. I don't have the luxury to stay up all night and read these propositions or understand the verbiage that are the way it's written. I don't have the luxury to go to a workshop. Someone who is putting it on. Because if I said, okay, as a millennial, we're doing, we have these 11 propositions, and I'm gonna do a workshop for the next 2 months every week, welcoming people to come out, learn about the propositions, but you gotta work. But you need a babysitter. But you know what I'm saying? So the reality is that we have to realize that we have so many things to overcome as well before we can just expect to just implement and have, again, like I said, millennials, we are so accustomed to instant gratification. I do this, this comes next. If this don't come right after, I ain't doing it again. And it's like, well, that's not how progression works. We have to be resilient, and we have to be forgiving, and have to be willing to keep up even when we're not seeing even when we are not seeing the results immediately or exactly how we want. That doesn't mean that we stop. That doesn't mean that we don't continue to encourage. That doesn't mean that as we become those elders, hopefully we are encouraging those people in Generation X. Hopefully now our nieces, our nephews, our godkids, you know what I'm saying, are seeing the effort coming from us, so then we can instill that in them. So ultimately, I think that we have to be patient. We have to be patient because as Barry said, and I had to tell some Becky on Facebook the other day, but again, our generation, millennials, I spoke for me, I'm the first generation born free. My mama didn't have the rights and freedoms that I have when I was born in 1990. They didn't even eliminate the poll tax until 1966. Y'all was still charging black people to vote. You know what I'm saying? In 1966, that means my mother was already alive. You know what I'm saying? That there's so many things that there have been a progression of things, but we are the first. We are the first generation born free. And it's like, now that we don't have these restrictions, now that we don't have to fight for Title IX, now that we don't have to do that, where do we go from here? We don't have anybody to tell us that, because this is a very new position for young black people.
I don't think.
I don't think. Born free.
Yeah, you're not born free. You're born with some liberties. But I mean, that's what some liberties and privileges.
Right?
You're not
Yeah,
free.
but free.
Right?
Nobody
Nah.
in America. You got a social security number. You are not free.
Well, when I say,
I think people want to know. We get it.
We were just
and
saying,
just
when you
but
said
More
and
liberties.
how we
because
and
every
privilege.
generation says that, by the way. Every
Of
generation
course.
say, I ain't my mama.
Yeah.
I got,
and it's
all of us, that's a part of you.
Right.
But I'll say this, the reason why I posted my questions to the millennials, that's all that's in this room.
Right.
That's like, I can't be posting stuff to older people besides me and Barry because they ain't in the room. And I realize that y'all just a fraction of that millennial.
But do
That's
you
why I love
understand
traveling.
like
I
how
love
we were,
traveling.
yeah,
You get to
how we
meet
were
other
talking
young
about
people doing
before in terms of like who we voted for, right? Barry had asked us, is this first time voting or however many times, right? I think everyone in this room can say, yeah, besides 2 years ago, but the only president that I had voted for was a black man. That's not a reality for my mama. That's not a reality for my auntie. That's not, you know what I'm saying? That's not even as president. You know what I'm saying? The first person that I voted for in the presidency, or the only president that I had ever voted for until 2 years ago, was a black man. That's not a reality that
And
everybody
we
can
voted
say.
for him, but did we get what we need as black people?
I
Now
mean,
that's another hard
Dun,
topic. I don't
dun,
nobody get mad at me.
dun,
No, I'm not saying
If I was a Latina, I would be very proud of that because it's my
No.
Latino because he really did a lot for us.
I'm not saying that. I think
the
that
other
What
my,
he
people-
didn't do now for the black people.
I think that my point of
He gave
bringing
us
that
imagery.
A little, he did a little bit.
No, I'm just
He
But
gave us some
imagery,
good
no, but-
imagery, some good
But-
statues.
But no, but
Symbolism.
But
But-
that symbolism is
Yeah, but see, but here's the thing about it. No, but see that, and again, it goes into the business tone that I am taking for elections.
Yeah.
We have to be, we are in our business mindset right now, and that's what I feel we have not done. Now, when we apply the business and then the build, got the business and the build, as well as the education. Let's walk with me. The business, you know what I the business, the build, and the education.
Right.
BBE, you like that? The BBE. When we add the BBE, then we start making names. Because see, I don't have to like a whole bunch of black people.
Me either.
And I know a lot of black people don't like me. But see, you better watch out. You might be one of them. But here's the thing about it. I am about my business. I am a builder and I'm an educator in the same sense. I know when I see talented young people around me, and I know because when I was coming up, no one gave me a platform. I was like, yo, let's have this conversation. And because you have the ingenuity to see, yes, Barry, let's have this conversation because this conversation is needed for our young black folks to be able to express themselves and also other people to hear. We have young people that are ready.
Yeah.
But if we don't have a game plan, if someone's not putting out some kind of strategy or want to hear other people's strategies and ideas to make it, you can't just keep on zooming us with the same thing. Go vote Democrat. Nigga, that don't work. Go vote Republican. Nigga, that don't work. Can we do something different? And then we have all these black people at the table. They don't want to talk about reparations. They don't even bring that up. And then in the same time, it's like, that's why it's like what me and Queen was talking the other day. I hate the fact that they hijacked woke. Stay woke, vote. Woke, vote. Be woke.
That's because we like hashtags.
Exactly. Negro, ain't
Love
nothing
a
woke.
hashtag.
Ain't nothing woke about us continuously going in there figuring out if we're a Democrat or Republican. Ain't nothing woke about that. Because if we walk up in there saying that we are a Democrat, we are just as blind and as foolish as the Democrats that told us that lie, as well as Republican. Our whole attitude has to be business. I might not even like that white person that I'm going to elect because I don't have a black alternative or I don't have an alternative that's suitable for me. But I guarantee you one thing, we should have about five black people that represent whatever neighborhoods, knocking on whatever governor's door, knocking on whatever mayor's door, knocking on whatever lobbyist's door, or anyone else that's creating propositions or measures to start saying, here's what we advocate and what we need from this that you now have. And I don't think we do enough of that strategic planning. We just kind of go vote, and then it's just kind of like we wait, and then we look at all the shit crash and be like, what happened? Well, of course you know what happens because we didn't sit there and do the follow-up. What's the follow-up? We vote, and then we get happy, we put a sticker on, and then we just let things be? No. Now it's time to build the plan. Okay, so remember we voted for Prop 10? What's going on? My rate kind of high still, man. You know what I'm saying? They going up about 15%. I thought we was going to go. That's what has to happen. And I don't think that we do that because what I think all of us have been duped by, we've been duped by the acceptable, silly Negroes who get these positions, these gatekeeper Negroes who get in these places and stay in their lane and don't want to rock the boat. You don't have Negroes talking black. And you can attest to this, Queen, because you've been here longer than I think a majority of the Sacramento. Is this the first time that Negroes have really started acting really black in Sacramento that you've seen?
No, not at all. That's why I think history, I want to say something somebody said to you, sis from Chicago, who works with tons of you. She said it was a reality during Reconstruction because more black people got elected to office in Reconstruction. And that's when they pulled the troops out of the South and terrorized the black folks. So I think sometimes we be talking about our emotional stuff. For me, if you came through the crack era, you had emotional issues going on. Let's not get it twisted. I think people don't understand what crack era, what it was really about. Because we read stuff like a 5-minute story. It's like, no, it wasn't a 5-minute story. But we all had to deal with people who we didn't like or whatever. But when you're trying to get free, you don't even give a damn about that. I don't give a damn I don't like people with, fake weed. But nobody care about that. We're trying to get the freedom. And I think sometimes when you don't know your history, people will be having you believe that you are it. And you're not it. You're a part of a continuum. We have always had freedom fighters. But sometimes it feels like all the information that you can acquire, we always take that lower hanging fruit like, I just want to justify me. I always say every generation was faced with problems with their elders. Every generation was faced with being broke. Every generation was fighting to go to school. Every generation we've ever had, if you ever toured the South, all those historically black colleges, most of them were funded to educate kids that were mulattoes. Y'all don't even know that. That's why most of them were open. It wasn't really for no really black kid. Let's get it, get it real. So I feel like sometimes, y'all know that? Yeah.
Let's talk about
We got our own classism. We got our own classism. So for me, it's kind of like, if we're going to get it on, I get the thing about finance. I think with black folks, I get the thing about voting Berry, I think is great. I just wish I would hear, because I hear older people all the time talking about their plans, or elder or middle-aged people, or seasoned, whatever we want to call people. I'm talking about the younger folks. So I feel like if you're over 25, damn it, you should have a plan. You should be working it. You should be telling us what you need. I feel like, sometimes I do feel like, and not all, because I know some young folks that's on the ball, but I do feel like sometimes people always complain what they ain't got left. None of us got left nothing. None of us was given anything, and I know it's like, I'm being passionate now. And it don't mean I'm being rude, but it's kind of like, nobody was left nothing. I didn't turn 20, and my mom said, go a check for $50,000. My mother was a damn maid.
My dad, 18
You
years
know what I'm
old,
saying?
my dad was like, here you go, brother. You about to have 8 months to live in this house for free, and I'm out of here.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, I'm always trying, I'm not saying you have to have the plan all laid out, but where's the idea? Some scientists say that we have lost the ability to dream. I believe that partly, because when I ask young people, you can tell me all the problems all day long. If I ask you to give me 2 or 3 solutions, you over here still stuck on a problem. Tell me some things that you think will work. You talked about economics. I can tell you're a person who studied. I know, when you say from the nation, that makes sense. They make you study in the nation. You can't be no Muslim and don't study nothing. No, seriously, you just can't. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying with that, what is the plan? Like, what should we be voting for? Like if you say you want a voice, we have this medium called Facebook and YouTube and all that. Put your own stuff out there instead of posting fights all damn day and watching fights. Post something. I grew up with BET, so I used to watch Teen Voices, Bev Smith, Our Voices, and Teen Summit. I used to watch that's when we had black news and black media. And even though I didn't agree with half those middle-class bougie Negroes, I still watched because it was like, it helped me to form my own opinion. Like, I'm not from the upper echelon. I'm from low-income people. So I don't get to have some of that. But I do get to form some things. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I want to hear from y'all as we wrap this up. What is it that the millennials, because that's who you can speak from, what are y'all plans and how can we support y'all? No, whatever you're working on. It's like, look, we got this going on. This is help us. No, for real. What's y'all plan and how can we help y'all as community? Because really, that's what y'all supposed to be doing. Because in a minute, y'all gonna be some elders. And I pray those young people say y'all doing to them what you say we did to you. Because that's what you do. You only do what you think you know. But if somebody did me wrong, I don't do other people wrong. That's always been my thing. If somebody hurt me a certain way, I don't go out and do that to other people. I just will never do that. Because I know how that felt. So what you need? Tell us what you
know
need.
what I'm saying? I need a job. No, but for real, I'm a communications major, and I'm trying to get a job in the radio station, and the one that we have is,
Why can't you make one?
I'm starting mine dropped this week, you know what I'm saying? Mine
support
dropped
you.
this week, thank you. But one thing I can say is that, not to bash no ages, people, or anything like that, but it is hard as a millennial to get the support you need from various people, from the conscious people, from the sleep people, from everybody. Like, people don't, people don't typically want to see your, they don't want to really see you win. So you have to, a lot of millennials, I can say, at least on behalf of millennials, from my opinion, I speak on the fact that we have to really pull ourselves out the mud for everything. And yeah, we do have support here and there from other millennials, but we can only do so much for each other. And we just need help all around. I need some help getting some equipment, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know, I don't know how to do grants. I don't know, I'm still in college. I don't know how to do a scholarship, and I'm 25, you know what I'm saying? So I need some help with some school stuff. I'm just learning about a lot of stuff from Khalil. Every time Khalil posts something on Instagram, I screenshot it. And I'm just like, okay, that's some law stuff, let me look it up. You know what I'm saying? Or some books, let me look those up. But also, my boyfriend grew up in the nation too, so I'm learning from him. So it's like, I'm learning, we learning, and I'm learning.
Read. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just...
know, but we just, I need some support. I need all type of support from anybody that got some communication background, because a lot of people are just like, oh, 9 to 5, oh, mechanics, engineer, work for the state. Some of us are black creatives, and we need some black creatives to really get creative and help us, because the black creatives that have black businesses, they ain't never hiring, so we can't. I'm trying, you know what I'm saying? So, who else needs some help?
I just wanted to chime on before they go. I do have to say, when I hear that we need help, a lot of folks put their hand out. And what I do know is a lot of folks, millennials, what they do, we just had one young brother that was supposed to be here, was supposed to come over here and work with me earlier, disappeared. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's the mentality of being consistent, being resilient, and really ready to grind. There's not that many grinders. It's almost kind of like, just give me it and then run. Nah. I'm going to show you how to cook this food so you can cook it yourself when I'm not around. So I'm going to teach you this way, but I'm not just going to just give you the meal already done. So I beg to differ, because I've dealt with a lot of young people in my day and age, whether it's giving them opportunities, giving them money, and it's kind of like, yo, this is not going to happen overnight. Like, I've been grinding and getting to the place where I've been from 2008, and I could say when I really started to see the light was like 2015 when it made sense. So sometimes it's just like, you can't continue to say, I need help. Well, if a person can help you in this certain moment, you should be able to kind of like, attach to that and see what you guys can build together. Sometimes people don't see the far vision of the build. They just want to get the right now and the immediate, and nothing like that comes immediately.
You talked about that. And sister from Chicago, she said what you said. She said, as for space to hold or to work, you got to put some skin in the game. You got to put some skin in the game with that ass. That's what Barry was just saying.
She already knows. She already knows. She already knows that. She knows.
I'm working.
I'm just somebody was saying, I hope y'all read these comments later and reply them, because they're talking to y'all, but I didn't want to.
I didn't know what that meant. I saw her post it, but I didn't know what that meant. And
that meant what Barry just said.
Oh, I'm working. I have a space, you know what I'm saying? But it's always good to have more people with genuine support, not just
Sometimes sometimes don't even take the genuine support. Sometimes you have no support. Take that 2 people. I remember it was just me, my baby mama, and my daughter. That was it. And it's a bunch of other little kids that had nowhere to go.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just kind of wanted to respond to that about taking the help that's given to you. I also believe that as a millennial, I have standards for the type of help that I need. So hear me when I tell you I need this kind of help. If I'm, obviously, if I'm just like, give me money, that's different. But if I'm telling you that I need to learn something a certain way, don't be like, no, child, like, I'm teaching you this way. Hear me is part of it. Hear what I need, what I'm telling you specifically. Don't give me what you think I need, because what you think I need may not be what I need at that time. And it deters me from wanting to come back to you for help. It deters me from wanting to work with you. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay.
But as a teacher, I think education is super important. This is my 5th year teaching, and I'm still trying to learn how to teach my children the real without getting fired, because I still have bills to pay, a mortgage to pay and stuff. And, people depend on me. So I'm still trying to learn how to teach my children, like I said, without getting fired. But I think it's important for parents. Like I said, it's my 5th year, so I've dealt with dozens and dozens of parents. It's important for parents to take time out to teach their children. My mama still teaches me stuff, and I'm almost 30. Like I said, she still teaches me things. She still gives me life lessons, and we have intellectual conversations. And I feel like that doesn't happen as much. Just talking to my students now, they're 8 and 9, but still, it doesn't happen as much. And I think that it's the obligation. That's a pretty intense word, but I think it's the obligation of the elders and older people to pass on information instead of doing things like telling me, go find it. Sometimes I need more guidance, than just go find it. That might have worked for you, but it doesn't work for me. So this is what I need. So I think that, to go back to my point, I think that education is super important, communication is super important, effective communication. So I think that the older generation, the younger generation have to get together, communicate more, and learn, because a lot of people don't, like we've been saying, don't know the history. Like, you kept saying they make you read in the nation. Well, if you're not in the nation, then who's making you read? You know what I'm saying?
Nobody,
So like,
nobody in the house knows how to read. You know what I mean?
there's, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, or they don't have time, you know, because
Paying bills.
because they got to
Read your
pay
own
bills.
book.
You know what I mean? So that's what I'm
Libraries ain't
saying.
nowhere even close.
I'm seeing. I want to say though that I am seeing. It's true.
Right.
It's very true. I am seeing when I am seeing like a change in the desire to read. Because when I was growing up, reading wasn't like yes, I can't wait to read a book. It wasn't that intense. I had a library card and everything, but that's because my mama made me get a library card. So that's what I'm saying. I think that the older generation or the parents of this current generation, and when we start having children, we need to make sure that we equip them the way the nation equips you with your skills. Your skill set is pretty dope. I ain't gonna lie. You popping the facts off real quick, and that's part of it. The knowledge is really power. It really is. And I'm just slide this in here. I think when they integrated the schools, that took away from our. It took away our desire for knowledge. It took away the just all of that. We started to get dumb.
They gave us their knowledge.
Yeah, and so that's why I feel like
Submissive.
having black schools is important. That's actually something I've been trying to get started, but I don't know where to go. You know what I'm saying? So, but I know there were black schools back in the day, so somebody knows something. You know? Yeah, and there's black schools now, and so that's my next venture. I've found about 2 people who really want us to open up a school, and so. How I need help is I need some donors. when I get that plan down, I need some donors, and I need y'all to send y'all kids to my school.
Amen.
That's what I need.
I'm gonna say big up to the nation. I'm gonna tell you about big up to the nation. I think sometimes we have to really practice love on each other, and sometimes we be hating on folks that come together. I think we gotta practice on not doing that.
Yeah.
So big up to the nation, to anybody that's independent through the years. And it ain't been, Black Hebrew life. All of them have to read. They came out the street corner yelling at people if they ain't read.
They have all the influence.
Whether you like it or not.
Did you know that it says
Right.
I'm like,
He dresses weird, but he coming correct.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
No.
Ooh, Lord.
The original question was,
What's our plan as millennials?
what is our plan?
Help y'all?
How can we move forward?
Yeah.
I think, just like everyone has already contributed to the conversation, in terms of moving forward, we have to, Barry spoke about, we came up on a system, right? I spoke about the system that we're all working on. She was speaking about the ones who have raised us, the ones who have guided us this whole time. And how I spoke before in saying that I feel like we are the first generation born free. And as you said, every generation gonna feel like that because every generation is getting further and further away from what their parents had to go through. But I think that there's so much to be said in that because I can honestly say as millennials, there are so many people who don't feel like race is no issue. When you consider the 70s and the 80s where it was like, no, we're all the same. Like, everybody's the same. Like, don't hate on nobody. Like, you know what I'm saying? Until people had to be like, I'm black and I'm proud. Like, you're not going to shame me to be black. Like, I'm not the same as you. I do have a different experience as you. I do have different obstacles, different struggles, different things that I experience that you don't experience. And our differences do not make us less than. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of showing that things are different and we have to respect that. So I think that a lot of millennials do not believe that there is a race issue. There's so many... They're like, that part of history is over. Like, if you are not somebody at this point, that's because of you. That's not because of where you came from. That's not because of this. And there's so many people who believe that because of the breakdown. Because they feel like, oh, well, this person made this decision, but they don't consider the why factor. They don't, like how you said, when we talk about the crack era, we're not considering the lack of men in the family homes. We're not considering the impact that has. We're not, and so when we are thinking about all of the ways that millennials come about, again, we are in the technology era. We are in instant gratification. We are in a time that we were told we were post-racial. We all voted for a black president 2 times. That's not even a reality that my grandfather ever thought he would see. Who knew if my my mama thought that. You know what I'm saying? And then I turn around and that was my only president for 2 years straight. So it's the idea that it's like, oh yeah, that whole race thing, that whole like fighting for social justice, like nobody's getting blown away with water hoses no more. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people literally feel that way, and they're not understanding that racism is nothing but going to change. Like you said, it is a continuum. When you, again, my degree is sociology, not economics over here, but it's called sugenics or something like that. Basically meaning, it's like a Latin word, basically meaning that it's all forever changing. Forever changing. It's never going to just be, like the same way they talk about, in 2050, everybody's going to be mixed. Okay, but then you're going to look at black and Mexican, and you're going to say they worse than a white and an Asian. It don't matter that they was mixed. There's still going to be a level of discrimination. There's still going to be a level of hatred or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's always going to be forever changing. So I think that at this time, we just have to acknowledge what is. We have to let go of what was, and we have to acknowledge where we are at this point. And if we really do want change in terms of the people that we associate with, the way our politics looks, the way our politics are even moving, you know what I mean? We have to take some accountability, we have to take some responsibility, and we have to actually start caring now before we want to care about it at 40, and then it's going to be too late. I remember I was telling everybody, like, yo, in terms of Trump getting elected, I'm like, y'all know, because so many people, I don't care, blah, 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 like all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but look at our social justice system, right? Look at the Supreme Court system, like, the Supreme Court justice holds 9 seats. At the time, we only had 8. Obama was trying to get a 9th person and all this other stuff, right? But then I'm like, yo, the average person died in America at 76. Like, 4 of our Supreme Court justices was over the age of 75. Like, at any point, they could croak, bruh. And then what? And then we got Trump electing, who's the only person who can select those people, for nomination. So I was like, that's really scary to think that I will be fighting for the next 50 years, because he ain't going to select somebody who's 50 years old. He ain't going to select somebody who's 40. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's going to select someone younger so that they can be in that position for the lifetime that they are selected for. So I don't want to be 50 years old still fighting the same people with the mentalities that my grandfather, who's 80 years old, been fighting since he was 20. You know what I mean? So when we have these, but again, how many people understand lifetime appointeeships? Like, how many people understand all these things? So if we are ignorant to it, we can't expect a turnaround to just happen. We can't expect people to just figure it out or suddenly care when they're not understanding how it is correlated to them, and especially when they're thinking that it's not a race thing. It's just all about my efforts. It's all about me getting up out of the hood and moving forward. And like how you said, not giving back. It's how many people, parents was like, get an education and get up out of here. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about coming back. It's not about thinking about the collective. It's about surviving. And we have to kind of get past that mentality and start saying, okay, our parents have survived for us, but now we can go ahead and move forward and be collective thinkers and move forward together.
Right on. So before we get to you with your comment, his last comment, I also think we need to clear up a few things. Like, there is no such thing as mixed. If you understand geneticism, black people made everybody on the planet, so how can you be mixed when we know racism made a construct? So
that's
but
even with our language, people get the win.
But here's the thing. But again, Queen, that's the miseducation of the Negro,
Yeah,
right?
that's
It's really the miseducation of the white man and white woman, but the miseducation of the Negro is we will believe everything is
There's no
taught.
such thing as mixed.
That's what it is. Go ahead.
But that's another story.
That's another
And the
story.
job of the president is to sustain the culture. And so when we say forget about yesterday, white people don't forget about yesterday, because their ancestors enslaving everybody is why they're in power.
Exactly.
So they never throw their history out.
Absolutely.
But go ahead.
Just on the question on, what
What's your plan, and how can we help you as a community, as a people?
I mean, I don't really need help right now. In the future, I will. But how as elders, y'all can help the community. In my opinion, is the wealth that you have built. I've said sacrifice it all. Whatever you guys want or you guys are investing, pull that together. We can begin this group economics. I had an argument with a brother on Facebook in Richmond. He kind of irritated me when the whole Kaepernick thing happened.
Don't ever argue with people on Facebook.
I don't do it often, but he kind of got me under my skin because he was telling people to buy Nike stock after that, and I'm like, look, that's exactly what Nike wanted you to do by endorsing Kaepernick. And he was like, what's the problem with black people taking ownership? I'm like, you're taking ownership of a white corporation. The amount of money you would need to be able to sit at that stockholder meeting to be able to have some kind of say at Nike is not enough. He's like, you're a young mind, you don't know how much we can pull together. I'm like, look,
I think I know who he's arguing with.
I'm sure you do. I've been wanting to hit you about that, but it's whatever. Then he hit me and was like, you don't know how much we can pull together to, buy stock. I'm like, so if you're pulling that amount of money together, why aren't you pulling it together and reinvesting it in the community and poor private businesses to augment them? Why are you just putting it in a white corporation that's not going to do nothing for you but endorse cap and say, here's your little cookie, Negro. Like, that's all I'm going to give you.
Right.
And so I'm like, that's what that's kind of another gap.
So you're
between.
saying that we have to stop fighting over crumbs?
Exactly.
All right.
Stop
Exactly.
supporting your oppressor.
So I mean, like, it was good. Like, it was good. It was good. They supported Cap, and I'm glad he got that platform, that endorsement. I don't know what he's gonna do with the money. All I know is he's eating. Black people gonna sell. Black people gonna buy those Kaepernick deal and give Nike all of our money. Nike earnings gonna go up. Their stock prices gonna go up. That's exactly what happened. It fell down to $79. Went back up to 84 in the next week. Made a yearly high.
And just real quickly before you finish that thought, that is the ignorance of us as black people. As soon as Nike jumped on the plane and everyone celebrated Nike and I had Nike gear already, but niggas was running and grabbing Nike clothes by the truckload and just forgot that it was a big truck that was filled with Nikes that was used as a bait truck in Chicago that got them young boys arrested. But we ran and we was running around talking about Nike. It's cool to support Cap, but let's not think that Nike did something revolutionary. What white people do, whether it's our pain, whether it's our our criticism to their system, our controversy, they find a way to make a dollar. Go ahead, brother.
And with that being said, at least right now, so I'm teaching my peers. I work at Wells Fargo, so I have my econ degree, I'm an international relations degree, learning about finance and all that. One thing I realized working at Wells Fargo, having access to FAs and be able to talk about the market, is that like my peers don't know this. They don't know none of these economic terms, none of this, these financing terms and all that. So that led me to start a group called Stack Safe Black Investors. Trying to teach some of my peers about investing. And then doing that, I realized that we don't, as young adults, we don't even know about credit. They were like, Khalil, we want to learn about investing, but I still didn't know how to balance a budget and know how to establish credit and maintain credit.
These are the effects that I'm talking about. We can't just think that we're going to start up and create this revolution when we don't have the people and we are not educated enough. We're not educated. We can have one Khalil. Okay, and this is for how many, the radius of how, you know what I'm saying?
The household would have failed their other peers of his by not explaining to them before their college career that you need to learn about this credit shit before. So also the household could have failed them as well.
But here's the one thing as well. I've been doing that for the last 3 summers. You know what I'm saying? Doing the financial piece. But when I am the one person that's doing something that's totally out the box, right? And we'll talk about more of doing it collectively together. You have other niggas that ain't gonna even talk about that because we just want to give niggas services just to get into a system to just do what the system says instead of thinking outside the box.
And there are people who've been doing it, but they just ain't been sharing it.
No, and that's the problem. Yeah, we don't. It's like
share.
there's a lot of information that are like really is trapped in academia, or if you don't get exposed to it, you would never learn about it. So like, and that's really why I wanted to start it. So now I'm learning about investing, and that's just like I'm teaching. Right now I'm trying to teach my peers about investing, so we can get gain that equity. We can begin that early on, so we can eventually establish that. Just what I need right now from the elders is to at least help us, get that group economics thing started. I grew up in
Well, you just said you didn't need anything.
No,
I just give you a mess with you. But please, let's be very clear. Let's never say we don't need nothing. I need y'all.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
He said you need it right now. I think the beauty of what he said was most times when people say, what do you need? Immediately people who appear to be hungry, because I say here in the U.S. you're not hungry. That's just my personal opinion. But right away we start talking about what we think we need, but we never really think about it. Like, let me get back to you on that. I need to assess what's going on before I say, fund me to do this. And then you ain't got none of the damn paperwork, you did no damn research. You didn't do nothing. And you may not even need what you think you need. You may need to just do some work first. So I like that you said, I don't need anything right at this moment. However, you start talking about your plans because that's normally what you do. So you can assess what you need. So when you come asking people for something, they're like, that brother thought that through. Not just one on, like, I need to eat right now. I'm saying, because, hell, you gonna eat, you in America. Let me get some food stamps or something.
That's always an
Everywhere.
interesting
No, I'm
question to ask
serious.
millennials because a lot of times people aren't asking you what you need. Like, you just ask me that, I'm like, oh. I was like, oh.
But even with adults, if I say what you need, they be like, huh? Because we're not used to
People
having
don't
black
ask-
people
black
say
people- black people
bullying.
ask
And that's
each
just,
other
and
that,
that's,
unless
because
you
we're
be
not,
church.
that's just saying that we're not used to working with each other.
Yep.
So just to wrap this up, and we thank you guys for coming in and coming out and turning out. We went from voting to this to that, but it's all collective, it's all beautiful, it's all powerful. And I think just reading some of the comments, people are getting a lot of good information, feeling it, because we have to have spaces like this where we talk our talk.
Yeah.
Right, and not be afraid, apologizing, not be fearful how it's going to make someone react. Just be able to have a conversation to dictate what we need to change and have our black agenda. So November 6th is tomorrow. What are you going to do about trapping the vote? What you gonna do for voting?
Oh man, we anything you want to come out to SAC Urbanly? We having a watch party. I'm making sure I'm canceling our meeting tomorrow for SAC Black investors. We're gonna all make sure we go to that. But I'm definitely gonna take time out to actually go. I haven't voted yet. Measure U is really the one thing that I've been deliberating on that I didn't know how I was gonna officially
Let's
vote.
talk about that.
Yeah, we definitely can.
It was strategy. That's all I'm saying.
So yeah, tomorrow will be the day I actually take off from work and actually go submit my ballot.
Right on. What about you?
Oh yeah, I'm already voting too. The one I'm hung up on is Prop 10. But anywho, tomorrow, yes, it is the 6th. Just like I've been doing, I'm going to be encouraging people to get out to, well, it's too late to register now. But I was encouraging people to register, to vote, to be informed, to spread awareness, to take one person, and even if that other person is a young person, just so that you are instilling the importance of voting and not letting people influence them and thinking that it doesn't matter, that it's not important. My daughter is 7 years old and she knows about voting. Like she knows what's up. She's excited about it. She's disappointed about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's involved because she needs to know that her voice matters, her mind matters, her future matters, and she can take hold of all of that by being involved and being rooted in the community, whether it be community-based organizations like that Berry has, or that we have plenty here in Sacramento, but you just, again, have to be willing to be dedicated and unify. But tomorrow I will be voting, I will be taking my child, I will be sharing it, and that's another thing as millennials. Technology, like I said, is so big, and everybody always want to seem so important. Everybody always want to, everything's a photo op, like, you know what I mean? So making it more cool to vote, you know what I mean? And having t-shirts, having the boomerangs, having this, and just spreading it, sharing it, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, like whatever, just to make it clear that the black vote is here, youth vote is here, and we haven't given up on the future that we are very invested in.
Right on.
So I'm trying to get home right now so I can, me and my mom and my sister can sit down and do our ballots. My sister is gonna drop off. We all have home ballots, so we vote at home, and she's gonna go drop them off in the morning. Make sure my nephew's right there too, because he needs to get his mind right. He's 12, but 6 years is gonna fly by. So yeah, that's what I'm doing for the vote.
Your part.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna be at school, and then after school, while I'm at school, I'm gonna be harassing all the black students about voting, and if they haven't, why not, and just basically getting on their line, because nobody's gonna do it. Social media, that's not saying that's not a bad idea, but in real life, somebody gotta shake them up and let them know, like, you need to be voting and why. Then after school, I'm gonna vote. I normally used to do it home ballot, but now I just, me and my boyfriend, we go together. So they can see black people going into the polls and voting. So we just gonna take our pamphlets and we gonna go read them one by one, and we gonna vote, and then we gonna go to the mixer. So yeah, we go into the polls after class, and that's what we gonna do. Make sure we get that vote popping.
Right on. That's what's up.
Thank you again, you guys, for sharing this space. Mama Ro, this is all beautiful, You're not with it just yet. I appreciate that. Thank you. I think that, this voting is so important, but one of the greatest gifts that I believe we had, and some Negroes will probably disagree, but for those people that understand the term or the idea that I'm thinking, was getting Donald Trump into presidency was the greatest gift that Negroes could have. so Nichols could really realize this fantasy of freedom, this fantasy of liberation that we thought we had, this idea of being comfortable in this United States without clearly getting our reparations for things that have been done. And we're not even talking about just the enslavement, we're talking about the crack era. We're talking about when our leaders were just murdered and prosecuted for felonious crimes that were just made up by the CIA. It was a moment for us to now really start looking at this now vote as a business thing, not as a symbolic victory. We have a black president for 8 years and yay, thank you, Jesus. But now looking at this is business, because they look at it as business. If you look at a sport as a sport anymore, you're a fool. Sport is business, and this is business. So when you have a guy like Donald Trump, who has paraded around with Make America Great Again and hasn't put a definition on that term, and me and Queen were sitting down in Greenhaven and we were just conversating and we were eating, and here comes this white man as bold as he wanted to be in Greenhaven with Make America Great hat on, and not even tripping that there was 3 black people that were sitting at the table. He didn't take off his hat, but one time probably one of his white friends got so uncomfortable because we kept on looking back at him, and he just finally said, I'm out of here. So where you gotta go? You're retired. He says, I feel the heat, man. But how comfortable they are in a position of privilege, in a position of power, we must now continue to make them uncomfortable. And so what Donald Trump has allowed Negroes to really say, if you're truly woke, you're not going to go in that ballot and say Democrat. You're not going to go in that ballot and say Republican. But you will go in that ballot with a mindset of business, build, and education, and creatively come together with people that are like-minded. It ain't going to be everyone, and figure out what's going to work for us and what's not going to work for us. And now that we know that the system isn't truly going to work for us because we've been woken up to this idea that, you have this crazy white guy that has created these other individuals to come out of the woodworks and feel empowered. I mean, they are empowered by him just being this bold-faced racist in front of the world, that we now have to empower ourselves, go into the polls, and not do it because we are looking at it for an ancestral purpose and doing it because they died for it. Just do it because it's a business move. It's a strategic move on the chess plate, and we have to make that move, and we have to think about it with strategy, not emotion. So go into the vote, trap the vote. We thank you guys for shooting it down. Mama Ro, anything else?
No, thank y'all very much. Thanks to the Rose Family Empowerment Center for allowing us to use their space here. And whatever it takes you to do, whatever you have to do, just go vote, y'all. Just go vote. Because some of us just need to be told, just go take your ass and vote. All right, y'all.
And we're going to come with part 2. Peace. All right.